Deseret News Rewind is presented by Heidemann and Associates. Call them now for a free consultation, 801-754-4240, or go to utah.law. Welcome into Deseret News Rewind. Dusty Litster and Dane Stewart is always brought to you by Utah Army National Guard, but this special video is brought to you and presented by Heidemann and Associates.
That's right, Dusty. In case we have any friends or viewers down in Utah County that feel like they may need a lawyer, hey, give them a call, 801-754-4240. Free consultations available from Heidemann and Associates, full-service law firm, and they'll take care of your offices throughout the state of Utah, so not just Utah County. Any friends along the Wasatch Front down south, give them a call at Heidemann and Associates.
Absolutely. I want to thank Justin Heidemann for his support of Deseret News Rewind. He knows we're doing this video. We talked about it last night. So we wanted to be timely with this because not only that, if you read the story by Amy Donaldson, who did a great job reporting what took place between Lone Peak and the Utah High School Activity Association, that they were now going to forfeit every win prior to last night, which they won against PG, which meant they went from being 5-4 to 0-9 going into last night. They're now 1-9 at the end of the regular season. This unpacks a lot of things.
Yeah, it does.
And just so you know, they already heard the appeal, voted, and said no.
Yeah.
So Lone Peak will go into the state tournament 1-9 on the season. Not only that, be expected to be around 20 in the RPI.
Yeah, and there's a lot here, right? So, I mean, you talk about the RPI. Let's start there and the way this impacts. Look, it doesn't just impact Lone Peak, and it doesn't just impact their first-round game. How you got to be feeling right now if you're Skyridge? I mean, there are 5 byes in the 6A state tournament, and we thought that 3 or 4 of those might go to Region 4 teams. Well, how about this? You now have 5 teams that have a game against a team with a .1 winning percentage, and you're trying to get a bye in the first round. If you're Skyridge, right, and you're right in that 3, 4, 5, 6 range, and all of a sudden you have a winning opponent that was going to be at 60%, and now they're at 10%, and that's 40% of, I mean, it's like, all of a sudden that gets really, really tight when you're talking buys. And I think that's the thing that for me is maybe the most uncomfortable about this. It's like, hey, if you want to enforce this, I get it, I understand it, but got to figure out a way to not penalize a bunch of other teams, because there's Farmington and 5A saying, hey, look, we played Lone Peak, and they're going to be a .1 winning percentage. That's not, my opinion, not the way to handle it.
Well, here's what ends up happening, right? Part of the RPI system was making sure that it wasn't just about, it was evening the playing field and saying, hey, depending on your region, you're not getting all the things you want. And this is not a knock. The Kearns has got to be dancing in the streets. Coach Rickards, that's a first-round bye. They were number 5 going in before the RPI closed, and now all those teams that were ahead of them could be dropped behind them. They could end up being the 3 seed when this is all said and done come Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And, you know, I mean, we talk about the intrigue that the UHSAA wanted to build excitement. Part of the reason why they're getting it, right? We're all getting, everyone's on the edge of their season. What's going to happen with the RPI? What's going to happen with the RPI? And I can't tell you how many texts I've got. Do you know what's going to happen? It's like, well, I have my opinion, but I don't know.
There's a certain coach friend of ours that offered money for someone to try to figure out. And
Coach, I got you.
To give an idea of what it would be. So very interesting. So what we wanted to do, number one, we don't bash a kid. We don't bash a school. And here's the other part I might not like. We're not going to go after the Activity Association either. What we wanted to do in this video, we want to present both sides. Taking a little page out of Mike Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser. Just didn't bring any hats. The good cop, bad cop part, one of my favorite things they did on PTI. And this, again, both of us understand what's laid out here. We've talked to sides on both sides. We talked to members of the Activity Association, talked to members who are on the executive board, also talked to people from Lone Peak, and also the great reporting from Amy Donaldson, getting an idea of what happened. So we want to play a little good cop, bad cop. I'm going to be representing Lone Peak.
That's because he loves Region 4.
Yeah, you want to know what my teams are. Not really. And Dane's going to be the Activity Association. One's very much how our relationship really is. Dane is very black and white. I'm very much color wherever I want. Sales versus controllers and analyst stuff. All right, so if I'm Lone Peak, I'm looking at, look, I've got over 300 kids on my team. How am I expected to now go look into all these things? There's a system put in place. That system did not flag this student and the fact that he answered one question wrong. He said, here's the schools I went to. He misunderstood it and thought that the question was, did you attend a school in the state of Utah within the last year? His answer was no. How am I supposed to catch it when your system, the Activity Association system, does not catch it and flag it?
So my understanding is the question does not ask, did you attend a school in the state of Utah last year? It says, did you attend high school last year? Big difference, right? Now, some people might say that's up for interpretation, but I believe that's how the question is stated. That's what I've been told. Do you have to go and verify the 100 kids that were on your team last year, Dusty?
No, but
you only have to validate those that are new, right?
Right.
So you don't have to go and check into 300 kids across all your fall sports. You just have to go and look at those ones that are new to your program, that have transferred in or are applying to transfer in. That's going to cut that number down pretty significantly.
Right, and I guess the part to me is there was an intent. I think part of the thing that can be heard on this is intent. Was the intent to deceive anyone? The Activity Association or anyone else? Here's the other part. Out-of-state kid, not out-of-country kid.
Yeah.
This isn't a student moving from Skyridge here. It isn't a student from PG, or even Corner Canyon for that matter, or even anywhere in the state. Out-of-country, the kid doesn't understand it. So as far as the impact of Activity Association, where he could have gone, there wasn't anywhere else he's going to go, and it's one part of that's wrong and no one caught.
Yeah, so I mean, the other part of that from the UHSAA background and based off the conversations that we had, it sounded like there were details where this was not a family move scenario, and so that does not apply under a, hey, we have a new established residence. They stated, hey, if he had answered yes to that question, he would not have been eligible given the way that form was filled out. And so, can you argue that there was no ill intent? Yeah, I'm sure you can. But where do those lines become awfully gray? How do you determine ill intent on a case? What makes this case ill intent versus a case in 6 months with another school? There's always going to be someone coming saying, hey, we didn't mean to. And I think that's true. I know Coach Brockenbank. I know Lone Peak administration. I don't think there was ill intent. But from an administrator standpoint, a governing body standpoint, it's hard to say, oh, this clearly is ill intent. This clearly is not ill intent. And so you have to have some form there. And in fact, if you look at this rule, a couple of years ago, we had similar cases in the state with teams that were positioned to be contenders for a state title, Dusty. They ended up vacating wins. The rule at that point stated may vacate wins. The rule after that was updated to shall vacate wins. Thus, zero tolerance. We are not in the business of deciphering whether there's ill intent or not ill intent. It happened. We try to be as clear as we can. We have a standard process that we roll out for all of our schools, for all of our activities. It's up to the administrations to make sure those are followed properly, that they are checked and verified. We cannot determine ill intent versus non-ill intent. Unfortunately, that's just how it falls.
Well, and so within it, all the games that are played, you only have a couple of out-of-region games. I think there was 3 out-of-region games, and then every game inside that was in our region, was in the region for Lone Peak.
Yeah.
So Lone Peak then goes to their region saying, hey, here's what happened, here's what took place, and the region representatives say, hey, let's get all the principals together, and all principals voted unanimously that there was no intent, and they weren't going to punish Lone Peak in any way, shape, or form. So if the region says no, why is the state going to come in and say, yes, you will be punished and you are going to vacate these wins?
Yeah, so part of that is, when you look at what happened a couple of years ago, right? Similar process where there was an initial ruling made, it got escalated, and that ruling was overturned. And it was kind of like, wait, what's going on here? Because the rule is explicitly declared in the handbook, it's my understanding that once a region comes up with a decision, that is surfaced to other regions who have an opportunity to say, actually, we don't agree with that. We'd like this to be further evaluated. But it's also up to the UHSAA, who has the jurisdiction, to say, no, we're going to review this ourselves. And given because of how explicitly this rule is laid out, I'm not certain which of those paths was proceeded down with, but there is opportunity to review and overturn region rulings. And I understand where a region was maybe unanimous, but we go back to how this started and how it can affect other teams in the region. Maybe they're not wanting to hurt their own RPI, right? A little bit of self-service. I'm not saying that's the case. Again, I don't think there's any ill intent here, but they have the opportunity to be the overall say. And in this case, because of that explicit ruling, shall vacate wins due to illegal participation, that's the way in which the UHSAA got involved.
I think the next part is, if all the technology we have, if you work in a system, no matter what the system is, a CRM or anything else at work, anytime something's done, there's communication sent out. Not always had to be acted upon, but also things sent out to say, hey, look, we can show that an email message went out, whatever the form can be, letting you know that a student who is transferring had filled out a form with your school on there, please review. None of that happened. So if the Activity Association is in charge of transfers and declaring them yes, declaring them no, they didn't catch it either. So that's that's where it has to be. Why is it then completely come on top of the school, or put on the school to then go through all those kids, go through all their things, and make sure they're right? Where they can sit back and say, well, look, you were wrong, they were wrong, no one caught it, but you're still going to get punished.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it would go back to, if you think about any legal document, this is not the UHSAA status, right? I didn't have a chance to ask this particular question. If you go back to any legal document, who is the person who's ultimately responsible for the items on the document? It's the person filling it out. Just because the state doesn't catch it, the government doesn't catch it, doesn't mean that's okay. If you misfile your tax returns and the IRS doesn't catch it until year 6, it's not their fault, it's your fault, right? You're the one who filled out the form. So it goes back to the responsibility falls on the individual, on the school. They try to allow athletic directors visibility into that. I know I talked to several coaches this morning, said I sit down with my AD and I go through that for my kids because we are aware of the potential consequence of that being wrong. So we're gonna make sure it's clear. Now that's harder to do at some places than others, but I think ultimately it's, hey, the UHSAA, we're not in charge of making sure you fill out your information correctly. We're going to approve transfers, but we can only approve what's been submitted to us. And if something is incorrectly submitted, that cannot be our responsibility to make sure that people are filling it out correctly.
I think we're here where we can kind of close it, because the next part would be, well, why so late? Well, part of the reason was late was Lone Peak didn't find out, didn't notice it, and put in, we know it was within a few weeks ago, was when they realized it, they sent it up, said, hey, here's what happened. They met, and then that's why it got to today. That's how long it took before someone actually saw it and noticed it.
Yeah, and we don't, again, and I think that goes to the no ill intent, right? The moment that Lone Peak discovered it, self-report it, they tried to follow procedures best they could. It's just the way the rule is written. And, I go back to our podcast a couple weeks ago. We had a football official. I asked him, what rule do you not like, but you have to enforce because you're an official? He answered that question, was great. And I think that's a similar status. Look, it is outlined. This is what happens when this scenario occurs.
Right.
And we have to enforce that. We may not even agree with it, but we have to enforce it because it's explicitly called out. And I think from the UHSAA standpoint, it's unfortunate for Lone Peak. It's unfortunate for the other Region 4 teams. It's unfortunate for the team who's now going to have to face Lone Peak in the first round. But that's the way it's written. And I guess for me, that's what I would love to see is, that rule is written out, right? Shall forfeit games. I get that. I would love to see that rule changed. Because for me, I don't even have a problem with the shall. But it's now we're going to take Lone Peak and we're going to potentially slot them in a game where someone who really shouldn't be playing in the first round is going to get them in the first round. You might have a Lone Peak AF matchup in the second round based on how this all shakes out. For me, I would love to say, hey, we're going to keep your wins in place. We're not going to go penalize Farmington or Skyridge or any of these teams. We're going to leave you at 6-4, but we're going to slot you at the lowest spot in the tournament, and we're going to make you have to earn your way there. I think that's maybe a better way to deal with it. You're not impacting other teams. But if you have to vacate wins, you can't do that, right? And so that's where this becomes a little bit gray, and that's where I'd love to see the rule get updated a little bit.
And that's where I think it has to be, because obviously it was done before the RPI change, which is interesting that it wasn't caught before then to say, because that was part of Amy's article. It was like, hey, a year ago, they would have been out of the tournament or been the 4 seed and then forced to go to 1, where now they could be slotted toward the middle of the pack and making things kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I think if I'm the middle of the pack, I'm not real happy with it, right?
Well, depending who the 3 and 4.
And the reality is, even if you threw him at the number 27 spot, the number 6 team isn't going to be happy. No one's happy about it.
Well, Corner Kansas can sit there and say, why don't we get Lone Peak in the second round if they won that game?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no great way of handling it. Handling it, and it's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
But I think both sides have arguments. I think in the end, when it's zero tolerance, Yeah. We'd have a bigger issue. No one would be 100% happy. Be a bigger issue if the activity association said, yeah, we get it, we'll let you off, and it'd be, it's because it's Lone Peak. That'd be the argument. Well, Region 4, we didn't want to hurt the high school.
And then what do you do in 3 years when this happens again, right? There's no accountability. There's no responsibility. There's no blame. There's no punishment. Why do we even have the rule then, right? I mean, it becomes unenforceable.
Right. Very, very interesting. Well, hit us up. Let us know what you think at D News Rewind, Dane_Stewart, at Dusty Litster. State tournament right around the corner. Brackets coming out very, very soon. We'll have those videos for you as well. For Vince Francis and Dane Stewart, I'm Dusty Litster. Thanks for joining us watching Deseret News Rewind, presented by Heidemann & Associates.